Hey YouTube, this is Diaphone. In this video, we're going to review what I believe are the most important things to learn to jumpstart your Street Fighter 6 journey from the perspective of a pro player. Most of this information is not covered or emphasized by the tutorial, and I'm confident there is something you'll be able to take away from this video. Knowledge is power, and the more you know about the game, the more effectively you'll be able to improve. And we'll get straight into tip number one, which is doing more drive rush, but in particular doing instant drive rush, right? So the way you do drive rush is you do a parry motion, you do parry, and then you hit forward, right? And that's drive rush. Now, the biggest tip I can give is make sure you do forward and then forward and parry. So you'll see the inputs look like this, where I actually hit a forward before I actually hit the parry, and that way you'll be guaranteed to get instant drive rush all the time. The reason it's good is it's really hard to react to, and so you can do something like a jab. If this jab hits, you get a full combo, and if you do it instantly from neutral, it only costs a bar, right? As opposed to doing drive rush from here, that costs 3 bars. Doing 1 bar drive rush is just very strong in this game, and you need to learn how to do it. Basically, anytime the opponent is just standing still, it's like, all right, time to free drive rush in. You get a hit, and you get, you know, a fourth of their health. Really strong. Make sure you're doing that. Other thing you should learn is like, what are your best buttons from drive rush? So generally you want to do jabs if you think they're going to try to react with a button, and then every character is going to have their own, right? So for Kimberly, for example, the 2 buttons I like the most are crouch medium kick because it's a low, and then stand heavy punch because you can cancel and do a lot of cool options. And then of course drive rush overhead is really good because you get a full combo from it too. All right, second thing is avoid burnout. So your drive gauge is really important, and if you ever get into burnout, it's just, you basically lost the game, in my opinion, if the opponent's really good. So the best thing you can do is just avoid getting into burnout. Now, there's a few different ways people get into burnout really easily, but I think the main thing is people do this too much, right? This costs 3 bars. It's really expensive, and you should really be careful about when you're doing it, right? Because on block, this doesn't really get you that much. It gets you an extra turn, but you know, even if you get this throw, like, you don't get that much advantage from it, right? So it's really important to only spend it when you know it's going to hit, or you're already at full meter. But a lot of times I'll see people, they'll do drive rush around here, and then they get almost put into burnout, or even worse, they drive rush here, and then they put themselves in the burnout, right? That has to be one of the most common ways I see. Don't do that. Simply, like, unless it's gonna kill, don't put yourself in the burnout. Same thing like with a combo. Like, yeah, sure, I could spend 3 bars of drive rush to continue my combo, but like, typically the damage is also never worth it. And another tip I can give around this, I guess tip number 3, is use your super meter well. One of the things you can use super meter for is, one, to put your opponent in the burnout, or to keep yourself out of the burnout, right? So anytime you do a super meter, if you look at the meter, your drive meter goes up, you get meter back, and they lose meter. And especially, it's very impactful on like a level 3, where they almost lose about 1.5 bars a meter, and you gain about 1.5 bars a meter. So if you ever feel like you need to swing the momentum in your favor for drive gauge, level 3 is the way to do it. The other thing I don't really recommend is that, unless it's gonna kill, or you're using it as like a reversal option, because again, level 1 supers do have invincibility, don't spend your super. So for example, with Kimberly, yeah, sure, I can do target combo into level 1, but if it's not going to kill, I lose a spray can, I don't get that much more damage, and I don't get any mix up after, as opposed to doing something like this. Yeah, it does a little less damage, but then I can keep the meter, and then I can, you know, cash out into level 3, which does way more damage, and you know, the benefits are crazy. Or if it's gonna kill, I'll just spend it. And number 4 is throw. Now, throw is very strong in this game. You need to use throw, and if you're not, you're actually trolling. So the reason, like, if you guys have played any other fighting games, usually there's like really good ways to counter throw. So for example, you could mash out of throws, like in Guilty Gear. Now in Street Fighter, I have the opponent set to wake up jab, right? Now you can actually throw them out of this wake up jab. You might say, hey, Diaphone, what if they jump out? They can just jump out. Oh, you can actually anti-air their jump, right? So they basically either have to tech or do a reversal, which makes throws really important. And which gives us the tip number 5, which is beat throw techs and reversals by doing a shimmy. And so the way shimmies work is, I'm gonna set the opponent to wake up normal throw. And if I go for a tech, you know, they're just gonna tech. You don't want to be in the situation because now you basically lost your pressure, right? But what you do is you walk forward a little bit, pretend you're gonna throw, and then you walk back and you do a button. This is called a shimmy. It's actually a lot easier to do. Basically, anytime you think they're gonna reversal or you think they're gonna throw tech, because this also beats reversals, of course. Do I know how to do? Yeah. So even though I actually pressed the shimmy button, it just didn't come out, and then I was able to punish the DP with a full combo, right? So learning to get that shimmy down is really important. Another time you can shimmy is, for example, like after a drive rush normal, you can either go for a throw, or you can go for a shimmy, right? And that kind of makes like a sort of 50-50 situation that you really want to keep doing because it's just really, really strong in this game. All right, tip number 6, and probably one of the most important things you can learn is learn the anti-air. I mean, there's some pretty good like anti-air practice. Honestly, all of these practice options are pretty good, but it's obviously way harder to do in a real match. But if there's one of them you have to get down, it's probably this one, right? And you just react to them jumping and do it. It's easier said than done. Now, the thing with Street Fighter 6 is that even you'll see pro players don't anti-air all the time, and that's because there's so much stuff going on. So what you can do is, like, if you think they're going to anti-air, just focus on them anti-airing, right? And if they're not jumping, then don't focus on anti-air for a while, and if they happen to jump, then, you know, let them get away with it. But what you really want to stop are people that constantly jump, because it's something that can be easily exploited. And something else that's really common, and my next tip, is drive impact, right? And there's also another practice module for this, and I think these are the two most important to learn, because punishing a drive impact is such a big swing. Not only do they lose like half their drive, but they also lose like a fourth of their health, and they get put to the corner. It's a huge momentum swing. So if you want to shut down new players, if you can consistently anti-air and consistently drive impact, you'll be golden. And now there's a few tips I can give. One is have a button bound to drive impact. I have a dedicated drive impact button. Now this is actually just the default control scheme, but I have a drive impact and drive parry macro that makes it easier to hit, in my opinion, right? The other thing you can do is, like, once you get a little bit more advanced, you know, if you're playing on your, you know, 60-inch living room TV, reacting to drive impact is going to be a lot harder than reacting on like a monitor that's made for gaming. So if that's your issue, understand that either, you know, just get better reactions, or you're actually putting yourself at a handicap. And the other thing is just consistently practice it, right? What I recommend is you could just put play against the computer and just look to punish the drive impact and the jumps from the computer, because that will kind of simulate more randomness than what these simple training settings do once you get the hang of it. All right, tip number 8 is parry fireballs. So parrying fireballs is so important in this game. So I lose drive gauge every time this happens, and they're gaining drive gauge. But if you parry, you don't lose quite the same amount of drive gauge. And you can also neutral jump the fireball too to prevent losing drive gauge. But if you're not parrying the fireballs, you're actually trolling. And then you see sometimes I'll get this like this blue glow around me, like it'll be called perfect parry, like that. Once you get good at the game, perfect parry is really strong against fireballs, and you can use that to your advantage. So, but the most important thing is, when you're a beginner, just practice, you know, making sure you parry the fireballs, and having a dedicated macro for that, it's gonna make that a lot easier. All right, now the next 2 tips, they're kind of more meta. Tip number 9 is watch footage of high level gameplay. And you can do this in a bunch of different ways. You could follow like I especially recommend watching like tournament footage, or watching someone like on Twitch or YouTube that plays the same character you do, and just slowly steal some of the stuff they do, right? You can start to steal some of their combos. You can start to see like what they do in neutral. If you're having trouble in a particular matchup, you can watch them fight that matchup and see what they do, see how they punch certain things. It's one of the most important things you can do in any fighting game. Street Fighter 6 is no exception as well. And if you find someone on Twitch that you like, you can literally just ask them questions. Or, you know, if you're a Kimberly player or someone else that I'm maining, yeah, feel free to drop by my Twitch and ask me some questions on the character. Always glad to answer. Now, last tip I can give is have fun. So I've done a lot of research into how to effectively improve in fighting games. And the most common themes that I see are making sure you have fun, because if you're not enjoying fighting games, what's the point in playing? Let's be real. And playing with friends, finding some people to play with, whether they're your IRL friends or just people you meet online through a community like ours or through a different community, is really impactful, right? Another thing, if you really want to get good, have a goal. Maybe it's to enter a tournament and not go 0-2. Maybe it's get a certain rank, but having those goals will kind of like put into focus what you need to do in order to get better. And it's the main way to get good at any type of skill, right? Including fighting games. The other thing I would say is diversify your practice. You know, don't just spend all the time in the lab. Don't just spend all the time in ranked. You know, play longer sets against people, enter tournaments. Try new characters, try new strategies. Don't be afraid to fail. A lot of it comes down to like spending your time efficiently and having the right mindset around fighting games. And that's honestly more important than almost any tip here, because that will set you up for success in the long run. If these tips were helpful, please like, share, and subscribe, because we're trying to grow the channel in order to help more people learn fighting games and get into fighting games, because fighting games are great, right? Comment down below if you have some more tips for beginner players. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day. See you next time. And, you know, follow Twitch, Discord, Twitter, etc. down the links below. And I'll catch you guys in Street Fighter 6.